Despite what some people might tell you, for the most part, the Calgary C-Train system is very safe. Usually people who fearmonger transit don't use it, or at the very least rarely use it, they're just out of touch. But that being said, whether it be poor station design or a station being located in a bad part of town, some stations do suffer with issues such as crime and disorder. It's important to identify these so that we're able to help solve the underlying problems that allow these stations to exist in the state they do. With both my own personal experience and help from a Calgary C-Train operator and others, I've compiled a list of the most problematic Calgary C-Train stations. Enjoy. Barlow Maxwell Station is located on the eastern leg of the Blue Line in the southeast community of Albert Park Resin Heights. If you're familiar with my channel, you may have seen me label this station as the dirtiest Calgary C-Train station, an opinion which I still stand by today. Personally, I've seen many disgusting things here, which I'm unable to list such things on YouTube, giving you a good idea of what kind of objects you might find at Barlow Maxwell. Barlow Maxwell Station suffers from a severe neglect by both the City of Calgary and Calgary Transit. Having less maintenance means worse cleanliness, but it also means safety measures are not kept up to date. The station suffers a level of violence that other stations don't have, which is amplified by the low volume of foot traffic. Thirty-Ninth Avenue South Station is located on the southern leg of the Red Line, in the southeast quadrant directly outside the community of Manchester. For the most part, this station has a relatively low amount of disorder, but it suffers from a large amount of violence. This primarily being as a result of the area of the city this station is located in, with nearby Manchester and Meadowlark Park being the worst and the third worst Calgary communities for violence respectively. This suggests that the issues the station suffers with are likely a result of the area it is in, rather than the station itself. That being said, the security and witnesses that come with public transport is likely safer sticking around the station rather than wandering around the areas nearby. One particular incident that sticks out with me was an incident in late 2022 when I was riding the train during rush hour. The train was stopped at the station, and whilst that occurred, a SWAT team was on the platform and arrested an individual at the station. The train ended up being stopped for about 20 minutes-ish. Another incident, this time being not from myself, but from a transit operator, highlights how much violence there is in this area of the city. Whilst driving the C-Trains late at night, the operator noticed that they had to do an emergency stop at 39th Avenue Station as someone aggressively shoved another individual onto the train tracks as an attempted act of murder. Chinook Station is located on the southern leg of the Red Line in the community of Manchester Industrial, near Chinook Mall. It is one of the most used C-Train stations on the network, and for this reason it sits in a weird position. It has the security and witnesses that a busy station would have. Despite that, it struggles with a large amount of crime and disorders, just simply due to the area of the city it's in. The area directly around the station struggles with crime, but same with a large portion of the communities with bus connections with the station, such as Ogden, Shepherd, Southview, Forest Lawn, Southwood, Ross Carrick, the East Village, and Kingsland. Simply put, there's only so much Calgary Transit can do with Chinook Station, with it being located in the worst area of the city. That being said, Chinook Station remains better than two other stations for the reason that there's quite a lot done by Calgary Transit with this station, such as an extensive police presence. Of all stations, when looking at total police incidents and not per capita, this is the station with the highest number of incidents. This is despite several stations having significantly higher ridership, such as Marlborough or City Hall Bow Valley College. A decent portion of the time, this station remains safe, albeit a lot dirtier and with a lot more homelessness and drug use than most stations. But this station is likely the station where you're most likely to see a crime occur. This being said, if you stick to yourself and don't look for trouble at Chinook Station, you'll likely be safe. The station's extensive security ensures that the chances of you being attacked unprovoked remain relatively low. If you're in the area of the city though, try to stick to Chinook Station or in Chinook Mall as much as possible. These two destinations are significantly safer than a lot of the streets and communities nearby. Franklin Station is located on the eastern leg of the Blue Line in the southeast Calgary community of Albert Park, Rasen Heights. One thing that may stick out when visiting this station is how run down and neglected the station feels. It's dirty, dimly lit, and grimy looking. Personally, this is a station I want to say is the worst just based off of vibes, but that being said, based off my own experience and anecdotes taken from a C-Train operator, the worst I can really put this station is the second worst. For the longest time, the station has suffered from neglect and issues such as crime. It was really the only station from the get-go which was dealt a bad hand. The ridership of this station reflects that, with it having significantly lower ridership than any of the Blue Line stations north of it. Even the name of the station reflects that Calgary Transit doesn't care about this station. With Franklin Station not being located in or next to Franklin Industrial, nor even having any bus connections to it, with the station servicing that being Marlborough Station. Franklin Station only has 2 bus connections, both servicing Forest Lawn. Whilst Forest Lawn nowadays is not the worst community, although not a great community either, historically it was very problematic and dangerous. With that, you can kind of see the reasoning behind why Calgary Transit has let this station fall into such a state of neglect. The revitalization of the Forest Lawn area though, the city has laid out some plans to attempt to help Franklin Station, with plans to completely redo the pedestrian bridge for the station and replace a large portion of the park and ride with mixed-use housing. Calgary being constantly changing in a pretty dynamic city, there's bound to be some stations which may have been problematic in the past which aren't so nowadays. For honorable mentions, I want to mention stations which may have made it onto the list if I made this a few years ago, but wouldn't anymore. My picks for that selection being Marlborough, Westbrook, Victoria Park Stampede stations. All these stations previously struggled with crime and disorder and were some of the worst C-Train stations, but after receiving better support to fix the problems, or even a full station reconstruction in the case of Victoria Park, these stations have become a lot better with time. Dishonourable mentions are a lot more straightforward than the honourable mentions. There are stations which didn't make the 5 worst stations list, but might be the 6th or the 7th worst stations. The runner-ups, if you will. My picks for dishonourable mentions are Centre Street, Heritage, and Somerset-Bridlewood stations. The latter 2 may be seeming like odd choices to some of y'all, but unlike other stations, I found these stations tend to be very problematic after dark, that just a lot of stations aren't. Somerset-Bridlewood being the only C-Train station I have almost become a victim of a crime myself. Now with that out of the way, let's get into the very worst C-Train station. Southland Station is located on the southern leg of the Red Line in the southwest Calgary community of Southwood. It is located in a declining area of the city, an area which isn't particularly bad yet, but has had an increase in crime and disorder within the past few years. The station being ranked as the worst may be a surprise to some people, but if you've ever visited the station after dark, then it probably makes sense. The station sees a similar amount of crime and disorder to Chinook and City Hall Bow Valley College stations, despite it being one of the least used stations on the network. At any given time, there's usually at least one, but usually several homeless encampments located in or around this station, with usually one big one existing around the nearby superstore. The most recent time I used Southland Station, there was a woman with half of her face covered in fresh blood just sitting outside the front doors of the station. This being said, even the worst station in the city is not that bad. You can easily go to Southland during the day without seeing really much of anything sketchy, in comparison to like really any of the really bad Edmonton LRT stations such as Coliseum or Central. The worst Calgary C-Train stations are honestly really tame. I still probably wouldn't visit the station after dark though, even if it isn't truly bad. Anyways, thank you all for watching. I've been planning to upload this video for a while, so I'm really glad to see this out. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like and subscribe. It really helps me out. So a huge thank you to NJacked and XDN for being channel members. Thank you for financially supporting me and making this channel possible. Peace out, y'all. Hope y'all enjoyed this video.